Let me welcome everybody here today because I think it's an exciting day for West Virginia. It's an exciting day for our country. Before I get started, I want us all to think about all the suffering that's going on in Ukraine and the effect it's had on the world. I don't think we've ever seen the free world ever come together like this before. We have a golden opportunity to reset who we are as a human race and do it with the dignity and respect and pride and basically the sympathy we have and the empathy for those who are suffering so much right now. Everything that we can do as the United States of America, I can assure you that we're doing. We're giving them all the assistance, all the aid that we possibly can, and all the war efforts that they're going to need to make sure that this is as punishing on Putin as he thinks he wants to be on them. So it's going to be a very difficult time. I want to bring greetings from my friend Shelley Moore Capito. She's in Poland right now with a group of senators who are representing. Everyone's rotating, going in, showing the support we have for our NATO allies, and she couldn't be here today because of that, but I want to bring her greetings to you. It's my honor to host my dear friends who I think the first time that I can recall that we've had this many secretaries, staffs, president's advisory team, economic team, all in one state at one time. And we have with us today, we have Secretary Granholm. She's the Department of Energy Secretary, a longtime friend of mine. She's a former governor of Michigan. We worked very well together and became very, very dear friends, and it's just so good to have her. It's also good to have my friend Secretary Deb Haaland. Deb's a former congresswoman. She understands what the public lands are all about and how we best integrate the public with the citizens of our great country, but also to preserve and cherish the lands that we have and use them in the most resourceful way. Also, we have Brian Dietz with us, and Brian's basically head of he's the President's Advisory Council. He's the head man that tries to put the numbers together to make everything work here as we move forward. He has his team with us here today too. For generations, I think all of you know that West Virginia has done the heavy lifting and we've kept the lights on. We've had the coal and we've done the mining and we've done all the heavy lifting and we made the steel that built the guns and ships and the factories and everything that we have today. And I just want to make sure that no one forgets about West Virginia and what we've done, and no one's going to be left behind. That's our purpose for being here today. Unfortunately, many of the communities that bear the scars of all the heavy work they've done are in a different position today than they've ever been in. And that's what we're here to do, to make sure that they know they haven't been left behind and we can do everything we can to help them. And I believe the two most crucial members of the President's Cabinet, which is Secretary of Energy and Interior, are the two agencies that are going to help us revitalize West Virginia and our coal communities. And they're here with their staff, as I said before. You're going to see working group on coal and power plant communities. They're going to be listening to members of our community and learning firsthand how they can use the important roles to ensure that every coal community has the opportunity to be the greatness they've had in the past. And that's our goal too. I understand that they're, along with a few others that this morning planned, that they're going to share some announcements with people behind all the speaking people that have here, and the announcements they're going to share. I think it's all going to be good news. We've had a great morning so far. We've been able to meet with Nucor, our newest, largest investment in the state of West Virginia, close to $3 billion, bringing close to 1,000 people to West Virginia, making this commitment to West Virginia one out over many states. It speaks volumes of who we are as a state, who our people are, and the confidence they have to make that type of investment with the cleanest steel making in the world, using electric arc, not the old blast furnaces that we all grew up knowing about. And we're all changing, we're all transitioning. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our native friend, Dr. Brian Anderson, who heads up Nettle in Morgantown for us. Brian?
Well, thank you, Senator Manchin, for that very warm welcome and for hosting the hospitality that we know as West Virginians to our federal agencies that we've been hosting over the last week, and particularly here today for a listening session. As the Senator mentioned, we're here to listen to coal communities, to listen to the energy communities, and to find the pathways for economic revitalization through the transformation of the energy system. I am Brian Anderson. I'm the director of the Interagency Working Group on Coal and Power Plant Communities and Economic Revitalization, and the director of the National Energy Technology Laboratory, one of DOE's 17 national labs that's here in West Virginia. And the IWG, the Interagency Working Group, is a group of more than a dozen federal agencies that are committed to near and long-term actions so we can support workers and support the residents of coal, oil, and gas communities through this transition, particularly here in the Mountain State. The mission of the IWG hits very close to home for me. I'm a 7th generation West Virginian, the grandson of a coal miner, and my family has lived and worked in this state for many generations, predating the state by about 100 years, in fact. I know how incredibly hard the workers of West Virginia work, and I've witnessed their resilience as our nation is starting to transition our energy system into the future, and the future of our energy supply. Now, West Virginia is part of a new era of clean energy development. And the state has the opportunity to be a leader, not just domestically, but globally, whether it's through jobs in research and development, manufacturing, labor, and much more. West Virginia and our energy workers are well positioned to take this workforce and move it into the new and emerging energy industries. There's been great progress to date in revitalizing our economies and the communities and expanding our workforce across this state. And we can't stop here. We have to do more, and we will do more, not just in West Virginia, but across Appalachia and all the energy communities around the country. This work requires the collaboration of state and federal governments, which is why here today it is really exciting. We're having an investment roundtable that was mentioned to support the energy communities of Appalachia. Speaking of the investments, I'm really excited to highlight a couple. The first, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, represented by the Undersecretary for Rural Development, Justin Manchin, is awarding 5 grants designed to invest in community services such as first responders, grid improvements, and other infrastructure to energy communities in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Kentucky. Second, the U.S. Economic Development Administration, as part of the Department of Commerce, announced new awards under its Coal Communities Commitment, a commitment that the Department of Commerce set aside $300 million for coal communities around our country. This includes a $2.4 million grant to the former mining and logging town where my family came from in Pikeville, Kentucky. It was to help the local medical center purchase important healthcare equipment. I'd like to extend the congratulations to all those recipients. This work will require collaboration and dedication, and as we look forward to the future of West Virginia, it's vital that we focus on the ability for communities across the state to reinvent themselves and to provide a diversified set of options for economic development. It is my pleasure to turn it over to a vital partner of the Interagency Working Group team, and certainly somebody who is no stranger to the state of West Virginia, the federal co-chair of the Appalachian Regional Commission, Gail Manchin.
Thank you and good morning, and today it is all about numbers. I am the 13th federal co-chair of the Appalachian Regional Commission, representing 13 states, and in September we announced our largest power grant program to date. That was $46 million across 57 counties across our 13 states. And yesterday, we actually formally announced our second tranche of power grants. Power grants are the competitive grants directed toward our coal-impacted communities. And so yesterday, we announced another round of grants, $21 million to 21 counties across 8 states. 3 of those grants right here in West Virginia, one to the West Virginia Regional Technology Park for $886,762. The second one to the Kanawha County Commission for $675,210. And to Generation West Virginia, $523,253. And that's not the end. We have another round of applications going out. They will be due April the 29th. So it is this continuum of our coal-impacted communities having the opportunity to reach out, but not forgetting that we have this wonderful partnership with the other agencies and administration in Washington, D.C. And we certainly plan at ARC to continue that growing together, working together, and making sure that all across our Appalachian region that people understand the opportunities that we have this time for the first time in our lifetime to really bring parity to the Appalachian region with the rest of the country. So thank you all very much. And now I would ask Sanjeev to come up for more important announcements.
Secretary Granholm and Secretary Haaland for including us in this rather important meeting. And I'm reminded of about 3 months ago when I was invited by the Biden administration to the White House. And this was December 15th, a meeting that had Secretary Granholm, Secretary Raimondo, it had the Appalachian Region Commission Federal Co-Chair Mrs. Manchin, Brian Deese, the National Economic Advisor, and National Climate Advisor Gina McCarthy. And at that meeting 3 months ago, I committed that on behalf of Sparks, that we are setting our sights on exploring, the word was exploring, the possibility of setting up manufacturing for our batteries here in the Appalachian. And when I said that, I happened to be sitting next to Mrs. Manchin, and I looked over to Mrs. Manchin, and she had a look of disbelief on her face. I'm not kidding, serious. And when I was done, she leaned over and asked me, she says, "Where's your company from?" I said, "I'm from Silicon Valley and my company is from Silicon Valley." That look of disbelief changed to utter disbelief. And I don't blame her. In California, especially in Silicon Valley, we have quite a few entrepreneurs who have this tendency to be flaky. So she was very justified when she had that look. But folks, 3 months from then, and here I am to make good on that promise. Today, actually yesterday, we announced that we are setting up manufacturing for our batteries here in West Virginia. And these 3 months have been phenomenal. I would like to thank our friends from West Virginia. I would like to thank Secretary Granholm and her team at DOE to make this happen. But just shows that when you have the right partners in a public-private partnership, you can achieve a lot. In these 3 months, I can tell you, we have quite a few friends here, my friend Sarah Biller, Karen Skelton from DOE. There were moments where I was like, all right, let's give it up. And I'm sure the same sentiment was shared on the side of West Virginia too. But I think the public-private partnership has made it happen. And again, a big thanks to everyone involved in making this come to fruition. The real work starts now. Before we set up our factory, we have to hire people. So very proud, very excited to announce a partnership with the United Mine Workers, and jointly we will be recruiting, we will be training and putting the displaced workers from the coal mining industry to work on advanced battery manufacturing. And we will be starting off with about 350 jobs, but this is just a start. The idea is to scale up to multiple gigawatts and scale up 10 times as far as job creation is concerned. So as I said, this is just a start. And I will wrap up with sharing one conversation that I had with Senator Manchin last night. He asked me, he said, "That's very good that you are looking to make cobalt-free batteries here in my state in West Virginia, but where will you get the cathode and the anode from?" I was shocked. He is a smart politician. Nobody else asks me that question. Not the people we talk to hire, not our potential employees, not our customers. Nobody asks me, where will you get the material from for making cathodes or anodes? I can tell you one thing. When I started this company 2 years and 3 months ago, the focus was to re-engineer the supply chain. It's a very long phrase, re-engineer the supply chain, but what I mean by that is that essentially, not only are we manufacturing here, we are actually creating the supply chain for our lithium batteries here in the United States, here in West Virginia. We are going to be creating jobs both at Sparks as well as at our suppliers who will be supplying us these materials here in the United States, here in West Virginia, not in China. And that's my promise to you. Thank you.
I hope everybody gets the significance of what that announcement is, that West Virginia is going to be home to a battery gigafactory, starting with 350 employees and training the best of the best, the mine workers that have already got great skills. This is what happens when you have focus and teams working together. And this is what the president envisioned when he set up the Intergovernmental Work Group on coal and power plant communities. He wanted to have the federal government focus its efforts on communities like in West Virginia to make sure that no community is left behind. One of the people that has been instrumental from inside the White House in orchestrating that is Brian Deese, who's behind you over here, who's head of the National Economic Council, and his team, working with the Department of Energy and our other intergovernmental partners here. So I think you just heard, I want to say 6 announcements so far, between the 2 you announced and the 3 that Gail Manchin announced and the 1 that Sanjeev just announced, and I have 2 more to add to the pile. So, number 1, when you have a battery factory and you have to have workers who know how to build those batteries, you have to have a training strategy on how to make sure that the skills are matched with the jobs that they're going to take on. So we are announcing from the Department of Energy $5 million toward a training initiative, a workforce training initiative, the first in the country focused on battery workers. It's a competitive program. So it's a new program, hasn't been designed where it's going to go yet, but I think you'll be well positioned, I'll just say that. But these pilot sites will be in partnership with labor. This is being done in partnership with the AFL-CIO. So the mine workers are going to be a piece of it. The United Auto Workers, who also build batteries across the country, are going to be a part of it. And so we want to make sure that we have the skilled workforce training program to be able to ensure that no worker is left behind as well. $5 million for five sites across the country. That effort will support, by the way, the $3 billion that comes from the bipartisan infrastructure law that Senator Manchin was so instrumental in making sure we got across the finish line related to these supply chains for the electric vehicle, like the battery and like the guts to the battery, including the critical minerals that make up that battery. We should not be relying upon countries like China or others for the supplies to make us really energy independent. We should be building the full supply chain here. And so part of what was done in the bipartisan infrastructure law is that we could invest in manufacturing of batteries and extraction in a responsible way of the critical minerals and processing of those minerals. And speaking of minerals and making sure that we are doing things right, we have another announcement, which is $2.2 million that the Department of Energy is awarding through our National Energy Technology Laboratory, which is headed by Brian Anderson. This is for the company called Matte Carbon Core Composites, which is taking waste from coal and converting it into carbon fiber and carbon composites for manufactured homes. $2.2 million, and that will be in Bluefield, West Virginia as well. The bottom line is West Virginia has powered our nation for the past 100 and some odd years, and we are so grateful for that. You've brought us to where we are, and we want you to power our nation for the next 100 and some odd years, well into the future, using new technologies as well as the ones that you have traditionally relied upon. West Virginia can be the pilot state for how the clean energy pie grows and how we can put people to work with fantastic skills powering our nation into the future. And it's why the president's full agenda for creating both supply and demand, the horse and the cart. The horse of demand has to be put before the cart of supply. And this part of the demand means that you've got to have jobs before you have people to work in those jobs. And the people that are going to be working at Sparks, as you heard, will be mine workers. And representing the mine workers in that is Brian Sampson. And Brian, will you come up and say a word about what it's going to mean for y'all?
Thank you so much. We are very happy to be here. As Sanjeev mentioned, back in December, we were all at the White House, UMWA representatives, the interagency working group, to discuss what to do with and how to better serve dislocated coal miners in coal country and good, well-paying union jobs. Both of us saw that it would be mutually beneficial for a partnership in West Virginia to bring the production of batteries back to the United States, specifically to the coal fields, using technology developed here, materials sourced here, and the labor of dislocated coal miners, some of the best in the world. Our UMWA Career Centers have the facilities to retrain these coal miners to work in the plants. We intend to begin this endeavor immediately. We hope to have the folks trained at our facilities and ready to go for production this year. We're on track to recruit as many folks as we can to staff the facility in Morgantown. We're ready to go. And this is a key component in the UMWA's energy transition principles that we announced last spring. We need good union jobs in these coal fields. It doesn't matter what kind of industry they're in. It's also important to point out the first principle of that process, and that was to be sure to maintain our existing coal-fired and coal mining jobs, and that would be through the construction of carbon capture and storage facilities. This would allow our current cooperating facilities and plants to continue to operate in a carbon neutral way. We don't know what the future holds. We know that we care about the tens of thousands of dislocated coal miners that are out there. And, the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure bill that coal miners across this country need to thank Senator Manchin and others for. Coal miners in West Virginia owe you a great debt, sir. That has helped move this process forward. So as we start towards this project, we've got coal miners out there that are laid off. Sometimes the coal industry doesn't care about them once they're laid off, but we do. And that's who we are. We appreciate the administration's work and everything that everyone has done to bring this together. We look forward to working with Sparks to create a world-class lithium battery operation here in the coal fields using coal miners, some of the best workers in the world. Thank you, and I'd like to introduce Senator Haaland.
Thank you all so much. And yes, I couldn't agree with that more. Thank you. Coal miners are some of the best workers in the world. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to start by thanking all the leaders who have joined us for a busy day ahead. Chairman Manchin, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here in your beautiful state and grateful for your continued leadership on behalf of everyone in this state. Secretary Granholm, so proud to serve with you in the President's Cabinet. We have a packed itinerary today where we will see firsthand how legacy pollution continues to impact people and the communities they live in, as well as the ongoing work to help clean up these sites. Over the last several weeks, I've embarked on a multi-state tour of Appalachia to view several abandoned mine land sites that are in various stages of the reclamation process. Throughout those travels, including some that we'll see here today, I've talked with labor leaders, current and former coal miners, conservation advocates, and community leaders about how critical infrastructure investments will help ensure healthy lands and waters in neighborhoods and in rural areas across the state. The reality is that there's a lot of work to do, and right here in West Virginia, it's a great place to make a great start. Thankfully, in partnership with many of the folks you see here today, the Biden-Harris administration is already hard at work taking action. President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law makes an $11.3 billion investment in cleaning up abandoned mine lands. With that funding, people can help to reclaim abandoned mine lands for recreational facilities and other economic redevelopment, as well as to improve local water quality and reduce the impacts of flooding. That law also provides, for the first time, a $4.7 billion funding to clean up orphaned oil and gas wells. This critical funding will create jobs right here in Appalachia and across the country while reducing methane-polluted air and water pollution. In fact, just in the last 2 weeks, the Interior Department has announced that nearly $215 million in bipartisan infrastructure law investments is available this year alone right here in West Virginia for those abandoned mines and orphaned oil and gas wells. In January, we made $140 million available for mine land reclamation work. In February, we allocated $55 million for orphaned oil and gas well cleanup. And in March, we provided another $18 million to address abandoned mine lands in West Virginia, thanks to the long-term extension of the traditional AML program, which Senator Manchin was instrumental in making happen. And that's just the beginning. There will be many more years of reliable funding that Americans can count on in the future. So today, I'm also excited to announce the opening of nominations for the 2022 Abandoned Mine Land Reclamation Awards, which recognize outstanding state and tribal efforts to reclaim abandoned coal mines. Presented in partnership with Interior's Office of Surface Mining Reclamation and Enforcement, the National Association of Abandoned Mine Land Programs, these awards recognize exemplary reclamation projects and are the highest honor a reclamation program can receive. These historic investments are all part of the administration's all-of-government approach to support communities as the energy economy undergoes a transition. Central to that transition is innovation and job creation. With these historic investments, we'll create vitally needed, good-paying union jobs in coal communities by funding all types of reclamation projects. And once these sites are cleaned up, they'll become part of the foundation for new economic development opportunities. The last thing I'll say is that none of this could have happened without President Joe Biden. With the help of leaders like Chairman Manchin and Senator Capito, President Biden brought Democrats and Republicans together to pass the bipartisan infrastructure law. Thanks to President Biden, not only has Infrastructure Week finally arrived, but we can look forward to Infrastructure Decade that delivers jobs for the American people. This law is the largest long-term investment in our nation's infrastructure and competitiveness in nearly a century, and perhaps the largest investment in our coal communities ever. Together, we'll make these smart investments, build a cleaner and more just future for our children and grandchildren, and I am happy now to turn it over to you, Chairman. Thank you.
Let me say what we've all heard is West Virginians is so exciting. It's a new day. It really is a new day for us. The transition that's going on in our country, the transition in the world, but also for us to be a leader. We are a state that basically is a heavy lifting state. We have an awful lot of coal, natural gas, but we have the opportunity to do so much more. And that's what they're bringing today. The announcements that were made by everyone you just heard speak is unbelievable. And we're going to have to really come to the table and come strong. We have to have the labor resource. We've got to be able to deliver, and that's where our educators come into it. We have WVU, we have Marshall, we have technical and community colleges, we have our system that basically is going to give us the workforce that's needed. Let me tell you how this came about to a certain extent, because the president and I had a conversation after he got elected, but before he was inaugurated. And we were talking. He says, tell me about what's West Virginia. And I said, sir, as he knows he didn't do well here in the election. And we were talking about that, and it wasn't about that. He wasn't worried about how well he did or how not so well he did. He was saying, why do they feel the way they do and what's going on? I said, Mr. President, let me just tell you very quickly about West Virginians. We feel lately that we've been left behind. We're not good enough, we're not clean enough, we're not green enough, and we're not smart enough. And for some reason, it's just discarded us. But yet we've done the heavy lifting that brought this country where it is today. We've won 2 world wars because of the mine and the coal that we produced, the steel that we made, and basically the commitment and dedication of the men and women who fought from West Virginia. We have more veterans per capita. We've given everything we can to this great country to be the superpower of the world. And for some reason now, no one seems to recognize it. Nothing's going on, and people have lost confidence in the federal government that they really want to help us being part of this transition that's going on. He says, we're not leaving anybody behind. I said, I'll show you. I said, Mr. President, we've heard that a lot from previous administrations on both sides of the aisle. We've heard that, but we have not seen it. I said, we've heard about all of these retraining that we were going to do for the workforce. We retrained the workforce, and all it ended up being, it was basically an extension to unemployment benefits, because no jobs came because there was no factories. Now we're seeing basically the rubber hit the road. That makes a difference now. This is the first time in the history of West Virginia that we had an opportunity to help ourselves, because it's a partnership. It's the federal government, it's the state government, it's the local government, it's participation, it's the private and basically the academia all coming together for one cause, to lift up the quality of life in West Virginia. We've got coal communities that have been left behind. They're not left behind anymore. They're going to have an opportunity. But they've got to be absolutely in the game too. They're going to have to participate. They're going to have to basically join this partnership. I've always said government should not be your provider, but it should be the best partner you've ever had. We should be your best partner you've ever had. They're stepping to the table. Our friends have come from Washington, my friends I work with on a daily basis, and we have the ability to sit down and work through our differences. But the most important thing we have right now, West Virginia will continue to supply the dispatchable baseload power that's needed as this transition continues. And when my good friend Jennifer Granholm was saying, we're not going to put the cart in front of the horse and say, okay, now horse, you push that cart up the hill. The horse is not made to push, you know, and we're made to pull, and that's who we are. We can pull our own weight, and we'll do that. I just thank them all. I think I've never been more excited. Today we met also, and I want to say, with Governor Justice, and basically we had Senator Capito and her staff. We have Congressman David McKinley and his staff, and my staff, all forming a coalition to compete for one of the top prizes, I think, in America right now, as far as in the transition going on in the clean energy, is going to be hydrogen. And a hydrogen hub is going to be tremendous. It is an engine within itself and what it's going to be able to do. We have everything here. We are absolutely ready to go. Corby gave us a good speech last night and told us exactly where we are, and a person who knows on the front line, that has the ability, that has the minerals, has the property and everything that can go. We're all in. Private sector, public sector, academia, we're all in together. So with that, let me just say thank you. Thank you to all of you for being here. And to our EPA friends, and I've said this, we need you to be with us, working with us. We don't need obstacles, we need basically partnerships. And they are here to commit. This is our Philadelphia office. They are committed as a partnership, working with us. If we're doing something wrong and we can do it better, help us and show us. We'll work together. If we can do something that we think would help you, we'll share that too. That's the partnership that's needed. And that's what really government's all about. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open up for any questions from our press, if you like. And you want to go ahead and get that started? And we'll reach out whoever
be a question for everybody, but, when it comes to these projects, they sound good on paper, but how can people believe that this is actually going to happen after a lot of people have been burned previously in just recent years of that?
Well, let me just say first, and I want our secretary to chime in, Gil and whoever, and Sanjay. There's a person right there that can tell you. But first of all, Nucor. Nucor's for real, you know that. They're the largest steel making, they make it cleaner than anybody else. They use all electric arc furnaces, they don't use the blast furnaces that we did in the past, or coking or any of that. So they're for real, they're gonna make 2.7 billion, almost 3 billion, they think when it's all said and done, 800 to 1,000 people. They bought the land, they're in production from that standpoint. So that's going to happen. Okay, we know that. You're talking about, the programs they're talking about now. How do we know it's really going to help Southern West Virginia or coal communities? And with that, I'm going to let Sanjeev can tell you exactly what brought him here and his commitment he's already made.
That's actually a very good question, because that's a question I asked myself when I landed here in West Virginia. And that was a question that was asked to me by quite a few folks. Why are you here? And I'll tell you why I'm here. Firstly, batteries are about natural resource economy, and that's what the state of West Virginia promises. So that's one. The second is, I'm not a rookie. This is my third startup. And the first two startups did not have public-private partnerships. Then I spent some time at US Department of Energy, and the lessons learned from all three were public-private partnerships are the only way if we are going to make the new energy technology a viable option. Whether we are talking about hydrogen, whether we are talking about batteries, whether we are talking about anything to do with new energy technologies, it has to have the right combination of public-private partnership. And I think what I've heard Senator Manchin talk about, what we heard the two secretaries talk about, that's the catalyst to make this happen. And then the third is, we need to look at what's in our house, not look at the neighboring house. What we have in our house is very well-trained workforce. If we can train them and put them to work, this is a very disciplined workforce, and that's what we need. And the next thing we need to do, obviously, is execution. So as an entrepreneur, I'll tell you, execution is the name of the game, but it's a combination of all of these as catalysts, the public-private partnership, the workforce, and making sure all of that is combined together, and that's a success story. Hopefully it's a success story.
We have Brandon, and Brandon, I know Brandon's here. Where's Brandon Denson? I know he's back there somewhere. He had to leave? And he's been in the front line and everything. The bottom line is, give you the bipartisan infrastructure bill. It's one thing for me to come and say, I'm going to work for this, and I'm going to try to get this passed. That's one thing. But this happened. $1.2 trillion over an 8 to 10 year period. It's a commitment's made. The money will be going out. Senator Granholm, Senator Haaland, all that. $11 billion in AML, abandoned mine land reclamation. $6 billion in wells, the old wells that we've had. And wherever you live in West Virginia, there's some old wells that need plugged. Methane's escaping, we got to do that for the environment. But it's basically going to create so many jobs. And these are all going to be jobs, basically prevailing wage. So it's all going to be high wage jobs, not just menial jobs or basically low entry jobs. So that's the commitment that's made now. President Biden has fulfilled that. He made sure he came to the plate. He supported what we did. He was on board, worked with us all the way through. Bryant was there from the economic end of it. They knew exactly what had to be done. And West Virginia was, I said, we're the pilot. We should be the pilot program. We'll show you, because we have more needs here because we've done so much heavy lifting for the last century. Found the site in West Virginia. He said that we found the site in West Virginia where you're going to...
We are a few weeks from announcing where the site will be, so we are in the final stages of discussion and negotiation on that.
How many people do you think you might be able to hire?
So, as I said earlier, we're going to start off with about 350 people in the initial phase, and then as the capacity increases, so 350 people for roughly about 1 gigawatt hour of capacity. Our intent is to scale that to 10 times here to possibly about 10 gigawatt hour. And you can do the math. So it's a sort of almost a linear increase in the number of jobs that will be created. So at 10 gigawatt hour, possibly about 3,000 to 3,500 jobs.
Let me just say... What part of the state? You going north, south? Is it any one part you felt that you should need to be?
Can you give me a couple of weeks? We'll be announcing that.
I've known John for a long time. He won't give you two days.
Oh. John, I'll be in touch with you pretty soon.
Let me just say this to all of you. I've been very skeptical about supply chains, and I've been very skeptical about EVs and going down the battery route. That's why basically when we did the infrastructure bill, we split off and put money into hydrogen. Clean fuel, we can do it, we can make it here, we make all you want. And West Virginia is a catalyst for hydrogen fuel, it's where it should be done. But with that being said, I said, fine, let's not put our eggs in one basket. Because I was always concerned about being held captive by the foreign supply chain. And I said, I'm old enough to remember standing in line in 1974, buying gas when OPEC shut us off. And I didn't want to go through that again. This is what I was so excited, and Jennifer and I have talked many times about that. And I've talked to the EPA and everybody. We have got to start working. Get us some permits. Let us go to work. Let us start mining. Let us start refining. They've all left this country because it made it so unbearably difficult to get through the process. And I've told the president this. I said, if we have to, use the Defense Production Act. We're in a wartime. And we've got to get up and running and be self-sufficient. Brian, United Mine Workers. Good question. I think it's for you, buddy.
I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
Oh, no, can you talk about these efforts in this moment we're living in now and what's being proposed with this project and others? Does it feel different from training and workforce development efforts that have been proposed in the past that have been kind of at varying levels of success?
Sure. Here we have an employer ready to go and to produce a product. In the past, we've spent a lot of money on retraining workers to go out of state and do other jobs. And that's been one of the biggest problems. Mine workers have had a career center in place for decades, retraining people who've been laid off from the coal industry. But we've never had partners willing to step up and say, we've got jobs for them. And now we do, and I think that's one of the biggest things to take away from this.
Let me just say, the prevailing wage, what's the prevailing wage right now when you say for labor wage, prevailing wage? 20, 25? Dollars an hour. So we're talking about higher than any type of entry we have. So the difference is right now, the money's there. They're going to do the wells, they're going to do the AML mine reclamation. So anything we train for that needs to be done to cap wells, to basically bring land back to restoration we can use again, you train to that and say, here's the job you get if you train to this. So if we do it through a community technical college or whatever, you have an associate degree, whatever you had the skill sets through that program, certified that you went through the program, you'll have a job automatically. This is not just pie in the sky, go ahead and train for this and something might come. That's the difference. And now you have with the clean energy technology coming, with the batteries, we're wanting to get in recycling too, because recycling, we can recycle and do tremendous within the recycling for the battery chain also. But I just want to make sure that we can do it here, and I will show how we do it in West Virginia. Anything else? One last one, if you got one. Okay, right there.
I guess my question would just be, is there like a plan to get to recruit workers? And I know that you have institutions here kind of looking at, filling these jobs with these projects, but I guess my question would just be, what's the game plan?
The game plan is basically convincing people that there's real jobs with real money. That's all, because they've seen so much before that never proved out to be fruition, to where there was a job for them to have a paycheck. There's paychecks waiting for you now. These will be ready to go. When were the contracts, Deb? I don't know when contracts for the AML, has it started moving yet now?
I'm not sure about the specific contracts, but the AML money is moving.
The money's been appropriated. It's already been there. It's there for them. They'll put the money out as soon as we have the projects. We have to have projects, and it goes, they review the project that we're doing. They know exactly how much money it's going to take to fix these projects, or basically do the ones that we've identified. It's a partner with the state too. State DEP, they're identifying the worst cases we have. That'll be the first one we start on for AML, from AML reclamation. And also the wells that we have in the worst situation that are having more emissions as far as methane than any of the other wells. And there'll be different innovation because, we haven't never done anything in this scale. So the better we are at it, the more efficient we are at it, the more we're going to do. Okay, thank you all. Appreciate it very much.